Welcome to the Live Your Possible podcast, the show about sparking and discovering endless possibilities where we work, live, and play. A safe place where we can help you peel back the cover to what may be blocking you from being your most authentic and happiest self.
Alecia Smith, welcome to the Live Your Possible podcast. Alecia joined Otis Elevator in 2015 and currently serves as the Global Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. In this role, she leads and directs the development and implementation of policies and practices to foster and drive a culture of inclusion, helping the organization deliver on its people aspiration and commitment to change. She provides partnership, collaboration, and counsel to multiple areas of the organization, including the executive leadership team, employee resource groups, and the broader HR community to increase awareness, drive new ways of thinking, and advance the understanding and impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. Alecia is not only a leader, she's a practitioner at Otis on a journey to be a place where everyone has a voice. I have worked with many companies, and Otis has something special going on over there. They are winning awards and working on a common purpose greater than themselves. Listen in to hear all about the programs and activities to bring inclusion to life as an action at Otis. Alecia is intentionally aligned with doing meaningful work and aligning to how you can too. Check out how she shows up in various capacities to serve others and the level of fulfillment she and others all gain. Like her childhood, I love how she empowers people to own their journey and path and support others as they try new things. You'll find comfort in knowing that yes, business results follow when we all step in to accept each other for who we are and help each other become and belong and matter. I promise you will grow a little from this episode. Enjoy the show. Well, welcome to the show, Alecia. It's so nice to see you. I really appreciated the friendship. We've started to begin and work together on some things. I'm excited to have a conversation with you today. And I know you're a Michigan State grad, and I have had some University of Michigan folks on the show. I hope that's okay.
It's all good.
Well, we all, I think, care in a similar way. I think we're trying to improve humanity in a lot of different ways with joy, love, inclusion, a lot of other amazing things. And I had to say, Otis just got recognized again, right this week. I saw your post, and I think Diversity Inc. listed Otis as a noteworthy company again for the third straight year.
Yes.
So awesome. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we're extremely proud of that. And we're inching our way. Our ultimate goal and vision is to be a part of that top 50 list. And what I love about Diversity Inc., it's well respected in the D&I space. And so to make any of their list is a pretty big deal. But yeah, we've been focused just on the work. And at the end of the day, we do the work and we have the opportunity to do these surveys really for benchmarking. But of course, at some point, we want to be in that top 50. But we made it on the list for the top companies for board of directors and our diversity there. So I'm really excited about that. We were number 18. And so yeah, we're just continuing again to do the work, and hopefully at some point we'll receive the external recognition.
Yeah, I imagine as a listener, you're thinking Otis Elevator, what does that look like? Where are they based? And I can only imagine what type of work we're doing over there. So after digging in and learning more about you all, it's quite fascinating what you're up to. One of the goals I understand is to have gender equality by 2030 in the leadership ranks. And it looks like, according to that recent announcement, that you're up to almost 40%.
Yes, it's absolutely critical to our D&I journey. And we made a commitment. We have a partnership with an organization called Paradigm for Parity, which is really a coalition of other companies that have come to the table and say, gender parity is important to us. And it may look different at those organizations, but for Otis, we've stayed committed to our executive ranks will be 50%, and we're well on our way. And we're led by an amazing CEO, Judy Marks. So as you can imagine, she's very committed to this work, and so is the rest of our leadership team. And so I'm excited about the opportunity that we have every year to get better. And, when I started in the role in 2021 in this D&I role, and we were in the low 30s. And so now we're again we're at almost 40%. And I can't be more excited about that work.
Yeah, congratulations to all of you. And I know you also received the Rise Award for that Paradigm group as well last year. So congrats on that as well. So tell us a little bit more. What does that look like at Otis? What does the DE&I program look like? What do you all, and how is it going?
Yeah, so I think as many, organizations, we had a reset. You know, our moment was, of course, in 2020 after the George Floyd murder. And so, of course, we were working on DNI. We had employee resource groups. We were doing those things. But we had an opportunity to reflect and really think about where do we want to take this. And for us, we made what we call a commitment to change. And it's 6 actions that we committed to over time, delivering on all the things from, doing an assessment, really, right? It's bringing in someone external, opening up ourselves, right, and being very vulnerable to what's going well, what's not going well, how far ahead or far behind are we, and what do we need to do to move forward. So I thought that was great that the organization did that, but also looking at, how do we make sure that we're intentionally building a journey around D&I, right? This is, you can do the trainings and those are important, but at some point it could become performative, right? We did it, we're done. And so we really have been focused on our journey, and we call it our inclusive leadership journey, and really helping our leaders, but really all of our colleagues jump in, right, in those key moments to drive our organization forward to really an inclusive workplace. So it's been fun work, but as I always say, it's hard work and it's heart work. And you have to, when you sign up for this, you have to really have a passion around it. And so I believe that the folks that are supporting the D&I initiatives kind of on a 100% basis are really committed. But all of our leaders, really are engaged, whether they're leading employee resource groups as sponsors, whether they're advocating for neurodiversity, which is a new focus for us at Otis, and disability inclusion in our product, as well as in our people and supporting them with accessibility needs, et cetera. Every part of our business, we're trying to incorporate this so that it doesn't feel separate. It really is how we should be leading and how we should be delivering the work. And so, yeah, it's a great, like I said, it's a great opportunity at Otis to become iconic in this space. And we want to do it because we're a market leader already in what we do fundamentally, right? As an elevator business, but we really want to be iconic in this space as well and lead the market. So it's a journey.
Yeah, I love the journey. I love the goal as well. And I think I saw a tagline, something like, "We will be a place where everyone has a voice."
Yes. Yes, we have a saying here that is a part of what we call our people aspiration. So more like our North Star, if you will. It's a part of our people strategy globally. And that is that we will, of course, strive to reflect the communities in which we live and work, but more importantly, that we will be a place where all of our colleagues feel welcomed, feel safe, and feel heard. That is critical, right? And even those words are now a part of our leadership model, and it's part of our leadership competencies. And one of our competencies is inclusion. So that's how committed, right, we are to this, and making sure that our leaders, again, are being held accountable to all of our, competencies, but most certainly inclusion, empathy, right? Those are part of our leadership model. And yeah, we have culture statements as well. And one of those culture statements is "We are many voices." And again, tying back to inclusion. We know that diversity is important. That's the foundational work. You have to have representation. But what's critically important is that we have an environment where people feel that they can express themselves, they can be their true, authentic selves, they can help, bring different ideas and perspectives. And that can come from all around the world. It can come in different shapes, forms, sizes, colors, right? All of the things. And so it's really important for us to, again, in our key leadership competency work and in the work that we're doing to develop our people, that this is paramount in that work.
Yeah, how do you encourage folks to step into that, to feel safe, to share their voices, and for leaders to make sure we're listening and we're meeting people where they are, especially around the world. So we're hearing the different ways and allowing folks to participate the way they want to, or maybe to bring themselves into the situation fully.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. There's a couple of strategies. And by all means, we have not perfected any of this work. It's a journey, as I mentioned. So we're continuing to evolve. But what I will say is, for us, it's really been about open forums. It's been about our employee resource groups. That is a critical element of our strategy. We have over 22 employee resource groups. We've got thousands of people, that are engaged in the work. And so for us, it's about having those places for safe conversations. And we've done it on uncomfortable topics, right? We've done it on race. We've done it on stereotypes. We've done it on, in the US when abortion rights conversations came. We had conversations, and some people would say, Really, at an elevator company or in corporate America, period, you're having these conversations? Yes, because it matters to our colleagues, right? To have that space. So part of it is those open forums. And then I think also with our managers is continuing to equip them, right, with the appropriate skills needed to create a space, right, where you can listen. And so we go very tactical, right, to, as you think about behaviors that are needed as a leader and habits that you need to create around how do you open up your staff meeting, how do you do a town hall, how do you make sure that you're incorporating feedback. We use a tool, and I don't know, maybe many companies are using this, but we found it helpful, and I've seen it done in multiple parts of the business. But it's a Menti poll. So it's basically this tool, it's anonymous. And so you could set it up to ask questions and people can put in comments. You could have it where they're selecting responses. You could have it where they're ranking and doing like a poll, if you will, or you can have it where it's open, remarks. It can create a word cloud so you can see what's commonality. Anyway, so I think those type of tools and using that in different meetings and forums to really get feedback, to really engage your colleagues, to make sure that they're able to share is important. And lastly, what I would say is, you cannot say Otis without saying safety, quality, and ethics. It is synonymous, right? And so for us, those are our absolutes. And so that one around ethics, there is a high ethical culture at Otis. They do a lot, our ethics team does a lot of stories about when maybe people didn't make the right decision and results of that. There's a lot of training around ethics. And so there's a piece in there that we leverage too, which is around speaking up. And so we try to work together to make sure our organization understands we have a third party, right, that will listen to your concerns and act upon them. So long answer, but it's in different ways, but it gets back to forum, right? It gets back to that opportunity to share safely.
Yeah, it's everything, as you're saying, safety and quality.
Yeah.
If you don't speak up, it doesn't matter which company you come into. If you're not speaking up, you see a problem, that's not good. Someone could get hurt or the quality's poor.
Absolutely.
You're not living out your slogan to move people, like made to move you, right? I love that slogan at Otis.
Yes.
Which is fun.
And we have an engagement survey, just like any other company. We do it twice a year. So that's another, opportunity to share as well.
Now, is that Menti? Is that instead of meetings, is that something that's almost like a live polling element that's just continuous, or is that more just in events?
Yeah, so we do it in both situations. We've done it in events. We've done it in meetings as well. We actually use it as part of our HR town hall meetings that our CPO leads. So, especially one of the ones I appreciated was after the engagement survey and you have all the results and you got everything, they did use the Menti poll to say, okay, what is the one action that you say would, just catapult us in a whole nother direction? And so you could use the tool and you could just see the things coming up, right? And everybody's watching it live. So you don't know who it's coming from, but it's a tool you can use globally around the world. So we really like that tool. And again, we use it in several different capacities.
I love how you're learning from each other. I think that's an important way to do that, either ideas or questions.
Absolutely.
And even just the transparency that's there, the willingness to trust your people and each other about what is being brought up and said. Because I've seen companies that actually have stopped doing that unless you put your name in, because they're afraid of some of the dialogue that might go on. So it says a lot that you're continuing to work in a place of trust. And I know you've talked about in some of your posts about transparency. You're like, what's so important about that?
So, one of the things that I think about is, it's so critical that we're all aligned, right? Yeah. We want to be clear about where are we going. And this is personally in my life as well as professionally, but if I want everyone to be, on the same path and getting to the same place, everyone needs to kind of understand, where are we? How can I impact where we're going and what we're doing? How can I make sure that my work is connected? I mean, people want to understand that the work they're doing is meaningful, valuable, and connected. That it's not, especially when you're building a career, right? I mean, it's very important that your work is tied to the purpose. So for me, that transparency is really so that I can understand current state, future state, and how I can, again, make an impact and a contribution. And so transparency, and we're on our journey for transparency, right? I'm so proud of us that we, just completed our second ESG report, environmental social governance report. And that allows us, right, to share a little bit, behind the veil, so to speak, of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and where we are. And that's a big step for our organization. And yeah, I think it's just important for people to understand kind of where we are and where we're going.
Yeah, having a connection to a common purpose, something bigger.
Yeah.
So critical, and to understand how I can contribute, or any employee can contribute. It sounds like one of those, yeah, no kidding. However, I can tell you, most people struggle with not knowing what they're doing and why they're doing it, who they're doing it for. And so it's so important to have that level of transparency and connection, as you talk about, and kind of bringing that forward with folks, and being comfortable doing that. So it's so good. I have so many more questions I want to dig in, but I want to pause and go to you personally. Like, how did you get to this place where you're focused on this work? You're not just telling people, because you're really you're a practitioner. You coach, you advise, you're winning awards, you're meeting people where they are, you're doing so many wonderful things. How did you get here? Are there some things that maybe you learned along the way, some beliefs, maybe some moments where you said, what, I want to change, I want to be the change, like your sign behind you?
Yes.
Are there some moments that you're willing to share, maybe vulnerable, or ones that are showing up today?
Yeah, sure, Darren. And I appreciate this question so much, because it allows me to really reflect and to think about, it's not happenstance that I'm in this role. I will profess that I am a believer. I have faith. And so for me, every role is intentional. Whether I was tapped on the shoulder for it or whether I volunteered for it, it's been intentional for me, because I set a mantra a long time ago, and when I began my career in HR, that I wanted the work that I was doing to be meaningful. I wanted it to matter. I wanted it to everyone that I came in contact to actually have an experience with me. And that's not to be conceited or to sound puffed up, but it was really about just being valuable and being able to contribute to a bigger purpose. And that is, so every role that I've had has been I found some sort of meaningfulness and connection to the broader strategy. And that's been important to me. So I think growing up as a kid, I'm from Detroit, Michigan. So I'm from for real Detroit, like inner city, west side of Detroit, because I know sometimes people say Detroit, it's the suburbs, right? But it was not the worst upbringing, but it was certainly different once I went to Michigan State and experienced a lot more diversity. But I will say my parents were very intentional about supporting anything I wanted to do. And I remember I was really, at that time, I loved to create greeting cards. So I had like this program on my computer, and I would write all of these cards for people, birthday, all kind of celebrations, right? Yeah. And I'm not that creative, but that was my a little bit of my creative side.
That's fun.
And so anyway, so I would do this, but it was all about, I'm always been a servant. Like, I wanted to just serve others. I wanted to, again, matter to them. I wanted them to have an experience, right? So that kind of is where that came from. Anyway, and so I remember that I was so into this, and I think I was in 10th grade, and I had an opportunity to do an internship. And I went to work for this graphic design organization. I have no idea why they hired me. But anyway, but it was downtown Detroit, and my dad would like go out of his way to make sure I got there every day and to do this work. But again, it was more of like parents like, well, hey, she seems like she's interested. Let's just let her try it. So they were very big. Every experience that I've had has been, I just try it, right? And I, if I have an inkling of a passion around it, I want to see if it's going to evolve to something. And so I had the right support, system, and also just taking those risks. And I think about that in my Whirlpool too, but definitely in my Otis career. It's been 8 years, and I'm probably on my 4th or 5th role, but that's because I just try things, right? I want to see, what sticks. And so I think that all comes back from just my parents were like, go for it, do it, see if you like it, So that's a little bit of how, I've gotten to this place. I started at Whirlpool in a rotational program. So quite naturally, a rotational program is going to allow you to do different roles so that you can see what it is, again, that you have a passion around. So I had an opportunity to work in different areas. And then I had an opportunity, of course, to come to Otis and again, do some different roles. So that's a little bit about my past, and I'm just really excited about making a difference. And Lori Havanek, who is now the Chief People Officer at CVS, but she used to be at Otis, highly respect her. She's a phenomenal leader in person and human, really. And one of the things that she would always tell us is leave your fingerprints, right? And that again to me is very important. That it mattered that I was there. It mattered I was in the role. Someone benefited positively from my support. So that's important to me. And I don't know, maybe because I'm my mother and father, I'm the only child. So maybe some of that comes from that only child syndrome, where you want to be like, you want to matter, right? You want to be seen and heard. So maybe some of that's from that. I don't know. Probably need to see my therapist about that one.
Well, certainly your parents are supportive, right? As you encourage you to try different things. And I mean, gosh, it's just a simple lesson, but it's powerful because it's like, as leaders, as community members, wherever you go, church, school, work, feeling supported, being heard to say, hey, we want you to matter. You do matter. We want to see your fingerprints on these things. Like so many people today are actually hiding, maybe not at Otis, but just in the world, there's a lot of remote, and maybe if I just do my work here, but what's happening, people are feeling isolated. People aren't trying new things. They're saying they just want to stay home rather than going into the office, because there's probably some connection points that are missing. It's hard to leave your fingerprints when you're not actually engaging and interacting with different teams.
Yeah. And I think for me, I recently joined one of our employee resource groups is leading like a mentoring initiative. And so I said, okay, I'll sign up as a mentor. And so I've been mentoring a few folks and experience this connection piece as well, right? And making sure that they feel good about the work they're doing and that it should matter and they should be connected to it, et cetera. And you should just see like the aha moments and the light bulbs going off, because they haven't had that type of conversation before. And another thing that I haven't coined it, but I often say it here at Otis, which is you own your career, you are in the driver's seat. And so stop looking over here and looking over there and expecting everyone to do everything for you. You need to be clear, about what it is that you desire for yourself, and you have to relentlessly go after that appropriately, but you have to go after that. And I think giving people that kind of license and giving them the support and having the conversations and giving them the tools necessary to decipher kind of what that looks like. That's my fingerprints, right? That is what I desire for people to really see their potential and to experience what it's like when purpose and passion mix with what you do every day. Because we spend a lot of time at work.
We do.
And so I want people to enjoy that. And so, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of people hiding. I've met so many people over the years, and I'm like, do you even fathom what's inside of you, right? And I go back to the story. I remember when I was working in HR operations and I was leading a team there, and more junior, early career folks at the time. And I would see so much in them, and the nature of their work. Sometimes it could just be, right, it was mundane. I'm running the onboarding process. I'm running Workday, which is our HR system. It was kind of mundane. And so I would say, no, but I can see X in you or Y in you, right? And then putting them in position to start to work on some of those things. Like one person, I would say, hey, you are so good at spotting opportunities. I want you to lead our continuous improvement efforts, right? I see in you that you're really good at labor relations. I want you to start connecting with the labor. So helping people see that and making those connections. And I am so proud of the people from my HR operations team that are now in new roles, promoted roles, going from an analyst down to manager roles. I mean, it's just phenomenal to see that. But people just need that extra nudge. They need that honest, open conversation about what's really possible, and to not get stuck in a job. Like, I want you to have a career, and I want you to feel good about the work that you're doing, because we spend a lot of time at work. So
no kidding. Gosh, I wish I worked with you too. I really love the thought. You're giving folks belief.
Mm-hmm.
You're really helping people see that they have it. And yes, they do matter. And you're like a super connector, helping folks see that. Is that a superpower of yours?
I often tell people I'm a connector. I
Yeah.
literally use that word. That's so funny that you just said that. But I am really, really big about finding your discovering your potential, but acting on it, because you can discover it and be nervous and fearful and all that.
Sure.
So that's why I say you have to have the support around you. But yeah, finding that and then connecting people. I'm real big on making those
That's great.
connections.
Yeah, I mean, really, you're giving belief and trust, gives people hopefully the faith to take those steps, even if they're nervous, with the confidence that, hey, I'm going to land somewhere. I'm not sure what that looks like, which is scary. Yet I think we need to step
Yeah.
into that. And I do think your fingerprints are out there by saying, hey, we want your voices heard. We feel like you're not participating, you're not going the direction you want, or maybe you have questions that you don't feel like people are sharing with you that aren't being answered. People are voicing that at Otis, and it sounds like you're encouraging that. And there's some companies that I work with that folks are saying, I wish people would just tell me. And I think people need to own and be responsible. To your point, raise your hand, step in and ask questions. So for listeners, really encourage folks to know that it's a two-way street. Because as you're coaching and teaching and mentoring, guess what? You're learning too. You're getting much joy, and you can feel the love that, hey, you're seeing people move on. You're not making people stay in one job. You're actually seeing the growth in them and the possibilities that are out there. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it brings me fulfillment, right? Those are the things that matter to me, right? And what I find quite often is that we continue to promote great people, right? They're great at what they do technically. But when you're coming into leadership roles, that leadership piece is critical, right? And that is that, again, that eye for talent, that ability to support, motivate, encourage people. We cannot take that lightly. And I know we're on our journey, even within our organization, to make sure that people understand, all of our competencies, right? All of our leadership competencies. And that's in addition to, you need to know how to do a spreadsheet or P&L or whatever, right? Like those things are important, but you hire people to do a lot of those things. And so the leadership, we all know, right? All the data will tell us, right, that leadership matters. But I've taken it really personally that's the work. That's the work is the leadership piece. And so, I value that, and I spend time with people, and that takes, of course, your time. But you invest in what's important to you, and for me, it's the people. So.
And you think about what matters and what's meaningful to you. And you said you get fulfillment from that. And sometimes it's a mindset. We say these things to say, this gives me energy, this gets me excited, this gives me purpose. I always talk about the need for greater purpose, like you said. We're on the same page. It's outside of ourselves, more expansive. Even though we're going to get fulfillment, yes, we are, if we're helping other people and we help other people light up. It's exciting, and what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, even if you think about the core of either businesses that I've worked for, whether it's Whirlpool, which is appliance manufacturing, that's all around joy in the home, right? I mean, and bringing people to the table and using, all of the appliances, all of those things is important. And then when you think about, the elevator business, I know sometimes you're just like, okay, you're just moving people. Well, we're moving billions of people every single day.
That's cool.
We're in the life safety business, right? Depending on where we are, right? We're in hospital. We still had to operate during pandemic, right? You still had to run, elevators in hospitals and all of that. So when you take a step back, it's really, again, thinking about what's the core of the business? What are you really doing? And then how do you, right, make an impact to that? And we don't probably spend enough time thinking about that, but that's what's important to me. And that's why, I choose wisely where I work. You can see I pretty much have had long tenure in both the organizations, because I'm connected to the mission and vision, right? And I think everyone may not, operate in that manner, but for me, it's really important for that to be connected.
I think it's inspirational. I feel like any of the listeners that don't have something that has a greater cause or common purpose, to pause and figure out what you do about that. Even if there's not one at the highest level, you could do this in your organization and start there, because that will change the big lines. And when you talk about made to move billions of people, look at that, not only just getting people from one place to another, I also think about people to think about those times. Hey, when they're in the elevator going up or down, what are you thinking about? Like, what's really important at that moment? Because I talk about, hey, use those little small moments in time to really reflect on what your greater purpose is, or why do you matter, or what's coming up that you really want to connect to. So I love the the slogan. So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Now I'm going to ask you a couple other questions. One maybe not as hard, but then a couple other ones. Hopefully that's okay. I'm just curious how you define inclusion.
Mm. So for me, it is about, and it is a phrase actually that many people have heard, but diversity is in inviting the person, right, to the party. But inclusion is about asking them to actually dance, right? And it's about making sure that you're creating an environment where diverse perspectives are, again, heard. People of varying dimensions of diversity are seen, and that they're respected, really, at the end of the day. And so that, right, because we're in business, right? So that we can be innovative, we can be creative, we can find new solutions, we can expand and grow what it is that we do for our shareholders, right? But it is really about the environment and creating that space where people feel heard, seen, respected.
Yeah, to me, it's like an action verb. It's a matter of doing and
Yes.
bringing people together. And you're absolutely right about innovation, discovery, new possibilities, bringing different insights and perspectives together. That is innovation. That's it. That's innovation.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you, I get excited coming up with new ideas when someone asks me, like, what do you think? I'm like, oh, I got ideas.
Yeah. And that's why I love that Menti tool, right? And we're not sponsored by Menti, but
I was going to ask you, should I call them up and say sponsored by?
I know. But any tool like that, right? I mean, even it's Microsoft Teams, which is the system that we use to do the chat and all that. I mean, they even have the polling and other anonymous polling, things like that. So, we'll use whatever tool, right? But the point there is you'll be amazed when you start doing something like that, because you're like, oh my gosh, I've never even thought about that. That's a cool idea. Let me learn more about that, So that is that curiosity, and building that back into your business is critical, right? Because, again, we're all in business to expand and grow.
That's good. And as you may know, curiosity to me is one of those things that it's not only just seeking out some different things or saying, hey, you know what, that's a different perspective. It's actually doing something about it. It's actually putting it into action. Like, I'm willing to unlearn something I know and relearn or get better at something I just heard, make it better for the collective we, organization, or an idea we have or a project we're working on.
That is so important. And I think about even coming into this D&I role, right? I was interested in going into a talent role, didn't know it was going to be D&I, but I was asked to support this work. And of course, in general, I'm obviously, for people that are watching this, you'll see that I'm a person of color, I'm a Black woman, but so sometimes we just think like, oh, well, they'll want to do the D&I role, right? But it is a body of work. It is a whole vocabulary. It is a lot of history, and it is different depending on where you are in different parts of the world. Yeah. And so I've had to unlearn my context of what diversity really means, because I've had a US context, right? And so, even for myself, I've had to stretch myself. I've had to really humble myself and say, well, what does this really mean if I'm in Singapore? What does this really mean if I'm in Korea, right? South Korea. So there's definitely a humility that you have to have, and there's a curiosity that you have to have, and you have to be in a position where you realize that you can still learn and you can still, add to your tool belt. And that is, whether you're the leader of an area or not, there's always something to learn, and you need to be in that kind of position to always be seeking knowledge and apply it. Right?
Yeah,
apply knowledge. Yeah,
it is, and I love how you're practicing that as a way of being.
Yeah,
and you're like you are serving others, and I can only imagine that the programs are different globally, right? It's not, even though there's a common purpose, it sounds like there's a level of autonomy across the different programs and different, call it local regions across the world. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think there has to be a global strategy, right? So I do think there's some elements that we could drive, especially around inclusion, no matter where we are, because people want to be welcome, respected, right? Heard. So there are certain elements of our strategy that are global, but we we're trying to simplify, right? Because when you're trying to do too many things, right, you're really not successful at anything, right? So we have 3 priorities, and so we stick to that globally. And then what we have is in the regions, which we operate in all parts of the world. So, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia, Pacific, China, et cetera, Americas, all of those different regions, then there are additional things based on the dimensions of diversity that need to be prioritized there. So obviously for in the US, you're going to see a lot more around ethnicity and race. You're going to see more about disability, LGBTQ, IA plus, right? So you're going to, depending on where you are in the world, you're going to see another layer of work that's happening. And that's, again, intentional based on what the needs are there. But I think the next thing for us that's global is going to be around disability inclusion, because that exists in all parts of the world. And in some countries, there's actually an expectation that you have a percentage of your workforce that are in varying disabilities or have varying disabilities. So that's kind of a next one for us that we started the work this year globally. But again, that's how we kind of structure it so that we still get the local needs supported.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that next level of thinking about disabilities. And I used to work at the Hartford, and we took that pretty seriously because that was something we started with insurance, and even took a tagline around focusing on abilities, not to take away that folks had disabilities, just try to help focus on what can they do, and help them matter and belong for who they are and where they are. And I've never lost that. That's one of those things that I learned quite a long time ago. And it kind of my heart grew then when I started to see those kind of things differently. And I guess as we age and mature, it's about what we take in and what we do about it. And, so many people are kind of stuck in their ways, and they got to a certain place, and we're all on this learning journey, if we want to take steps to jump in. And there are areas that people are afraid to talk about. And, that's one of the harder I want to ask you about is this word called privilege. I was speaking at an event, and we were doing some prep, and the folks asked me not to use that word. And I'd love to get your thoughts on the importance of that word. Do you feel, does it fit in the workplace? How do you, people ask you about it. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's definitely a hot topic, and for many organizations, and Otis is not excluded from that as well. And it's been interesting, I would say, because we've had conversations about this, because we have an allyship program, and we were interviewing vendors. This is so funny you asked this, because this is real life example. So we were interviewing partners, if you will, for that program, and one of the partners in particular, out the gate, it was about white privilege. And I think for our Europe team, it was, because again, that program was going to be global. I think it was just a little earth shattering, right? What is, and more about what does that really mean? And so we tried to take a different approach with the vendor to really talk about majority, right? And kind of what does that look like of the folks that typically are experiencing the benefits, right, that we often have, and what that has looked like. So it's still the same topic, but just a little bit of a lesser direct tone. So yeah, we've had that conversation, and I think but it's interesting because I thought it would have been tougher in the US. But it is, I think people are a little nervous about it, but I think at the end of the day, we have to address our reality. And so for us, it's been about, what does our number say? What does our industry look like? And how can we change that? And how can we get people to really understand current state, where we are, their beliefs, and really have those aha moments of looking at their organization and really challenging themselves. Does this really reflect our people aspiration, which is that we reflect the communities in which we live and work? And we just keep tying it back to our core principles, and trying to ease into the conversation. But it's a tough one. And there are certain companies, they're like, we're just going to go straight in. We figure for our organization, because we want to get more people in and on the journey, right? Yeah. We've just tried different ways of getting to the same principle or the same understanding and direction of where we want to go.
That's good. I agree with the approach of get more people involved. I think getting people engaged in the dialogue. And I partially asked the question because I feel like we hear words today And we have a definition. We all had a definition. For the listeners that heard, oh, God, I just asked that question. And some people had a reaction where maybe the hair on the back of their neck went up, or maybe they started to get a little uncomfortable, or maybe like, yeah, I want to hear what's going on with that word, because people do feel and react to that word and some other words. And I think what you said is cool, because it's like, we need to really let's not just jump to react to the word. Let's take away the word and say, okay, that's important. Let's understand how it impact me. And then how does this impact how we work? How does this align to our common purpose, our greater meaning? And as an individual, does that word reflect me? Because to me, I'll admit, I was not using my privilege that I had honorably 7-8 years ago, until I recognized I needed change. I needed to be part of the change, and I needed to make a difference in my own way, because I didn't see, right? I was pushing possibilities and people differences, and I wasn't being my best self. And that was hard. It was hard. It wasn't easy. Yet I feel I'm much brighter, much more joyful. I feel like I'm bringing more light in the world. I feel like there's more possibilities. And people are like lighting me up, like to your point about being fulfilled. When I recognize that I'm not going to react to the word or other words like that, that I'm going to dig in and learn and say, okay, where am I at with that word? And how do I grow from what I'm hearing from other perspectives? Everything you're teaching and coaching the world, which is fabulous.
Absolutely. And again, my, perspective on all of this is, we have enough polarization in our world. We have enough of divide. And so really, at the end of the day, what are we trying to accomplish? What is the outcome that we're chasing? And really, what is going to be the best way within our, culture and our structure to help us get to where we want to get? And that for us at Otis means, because we are predominantly a white male organization and industry, really. And so what we want to do is help bring everyone right on the journey and along. And so for us, instead of so we don't have a course on white privilege, right? We have a course on allyship, and specifically around allyship, any of us, depending on the environment that we in, can be an ally. I can be an ally, even as an underrepresented, talent in the organization. Depending on the context and where I am, I can be an ally for a person. And so, how do we focus on the behaviors that we want to see and we want to extrapolate in our business, and really help bring everyone along on that journey?
And it's a two-way street. I want to add from an allyship perspective. I haven't figured out the right word. I love the word ally. I love mentor, as long as you're kind of a mentee too. Yeah. I just feel like we all need to step in to say, we need to learn together, and we all kind of need to step in the pool together. To your point about voices, we're many voices that need to come together to be heard together, to make change together.
Yeah. And I think one of our other culture statements, so the one is the we're many voices, but there's another one that we have 5 of them, but one of the other ones is we're better together. And so, we're really intentional in the work that we're doing in DE&I. We typically always use at least those two. There are other, like I said, we have other statements, but in our conversations and our communications and everything, because we truly are, right? And it takes all of us to make this work in our organization.
No, you're so true. And you could take that to many levels. There's some stories that I've heard and have also been a part of, where there's the whole S person, and it could be just two teams against each other. It doesn't matter background, what you look like. It could be operational versus factory versus
DOE versus business partners. Yeah, it's real.
And it's like recognizing when there is an issue, and it's not about, Alecia, you're the problem. You guys keep dropping the ball. It's like, how can we make it better? So we send you the right information, or we do it more timely, or we figure it out together. I love that phrase, better together. We're better together. And it takes the us and them out, right? It's the we, which is absolutely awesome. The other hard question, because part of this for you to help us define a little bit about pronouns. You have pronouns mentioned on your email, and you have a link to an external source, which I thought was awesome. Because even today, I hear people say, like, why are people talking about pronouns still? What's going on? What does it really mean? I would love it if you could help educate us a little bit and how that's going to at Otis.
Absolutely. And again, this is around inclusion. This is around acceptance. This is around seeing people, really, at the end of the day. And we also, for us, we're a global organization. So you're talking to people from all around the world. You might just see a name. You might not even be on video with them, right? Just depending on the type of call. And so again, it's that opportunity for those that want to express, right? We certainly don't force anyone to do it, but for those that want to express, this is who I am, it gives that opportunity, especially like I said, in a global context. And then for our folks that do, have a different gender identity, or those individuals that are non-binary, or those folks that are transgender. I mean, it does help that population of our colleagues as well, really share with you their gender identity. But again, for us, it's the combination of all those things. At the end of the day, those individuals having an opportunity to share and be their authentic self, right? Because we that's another word that's used a lot in this D&I space, is authenticity, right? And even in leadership, I mean, you're hearing a lot more leaders even say a key attribute of a great leader is authenticity, right? And so for us, that's a tactical way that we can help our colleagues bring that word to life. So that's a little bit of, for us, what it means for Otis.
That's great. It's showing up in different awards. I mean, I think you also won a CEO award, the team, the ERG group for Black professionals.
Yeah.
And just as a good example of walking the talk and how to work together and partner together in different things. Was there anything unique about what came out of that award?
I'm so proud, of our Momentum Black Professionals Employee Resource Group at Otis. It's been around for several years, and 1 year, and I can't remember the exact year, probably maybe 2018, somewhere around there. There was a desire to do something in response to, well, not in response to, but to support Martin Luther King birthday, celebration and the day of awareness, if you will, around that in the US. And so there was this discussion about, well, maybe we should have what we now coin breaking bread and breaking barriers, which is basically a roundtable conversation over food. And obviously before the pandemic, it was in person, but you would bring people from all walks of life. So even though it was sponsored by the Black Employee Resource Group, it was really for anyone. But you would show the video by Accenture, which is Inclusion Starts with I. And if you have not watched that video, you need to go find it on YouTube. It is a phenomenal entry point to really understanding the vast dimensions of diversity and where you may fit into that story, right? And so, anyway, so we start with the discussion with that video that gets people interested, right? It kind of grabs your attention. And then we had at that time, we were having conversations about stereotypes, race in the workplace, inclusion, how do we get better, et cetera. And it started, right, as a small thing that was done in one pocket of the world. And now we literally do it all around the world in multiple countries. Now we call it different things just because of the cultural reference and the local context. We want to make sure that it resonates there. But it's the same thing, though. It's a principle of we get around the table, we have conversations, and we did it virtually even during the pandemic. And we have these conversations, and so that is really been the I would say the paramount event, if you will, for the signature event for the Momentum Employee Resource Group. We've shared it now externally in multiple places. People have benchmarked it, but it's really an open forum and conversation guided, right? There are facilitators. Yep. There's executives in the breakout sessions. There's executives that open it up. I mean, it's really supported. And but that's what it is. Yeah. Well,
congrats again on that and all the success that you and everybody's having at Otis. And I believe it does impact results. I think I was reading on LinkedIn, you were talking about engagement results are higher. There's better hiring results. There's better business results, meaning bottom line results. There's better activity as far as productivity and more efficiency. Is that all true, or did I make that up?
No, you all can read it in our ESG report. But yeah, it is definitely real. We're making improvement on our engagement survey, which is how we measure, and we have high participation in our engagement survey. So we really value our colleagues' input, and so that's continuing to increase. We have a question specifically on inclusion, a question on belonging, a question on care, and we're making improvement in those areas globally, as an organization. And so it definitely is making a difference. Our board, as I mentioned, we just got that award, and it's a diverse board, and we even have a D&I advisory group, which includes one of our board members as well, and is chaired by our CEO, and I'm a part of that as well. And we're driving tough conversations, right? Because a regional president is on that board, on that group as well. A functional leader, at the highest level is on that group. So that's an important way that we show and demonstrate to our organization that this is important, and that we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't
right.
important work and driving outcome. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, congratulations again. And I know you're also doing other work. You're part of a sorority, or you have a podcast. You're out there in so many ways. You're, like I said, you're disengaged in many ways in your life, and you're contributing in so many impactful ways. And I just admire it and appreciate everything you're doing. Is there anything you'd like to add for the audience to consider as they're on their journey? Because I'm sure we're all in different places.
Yeah. Listen, it is so important for you to engage in the work, and you don't have to be a D&I practitioner. You don't even have to be an HR practitioner. You just have to be a human, right? A person that wants to see more for yourself. You want to build a legacy and a greater environment coming behind you, right? You want to leave the place better than when you found it, no matter where you are in business, in nonprofit, whatever your line of work is. Really be intentional about creating your fingerprints. And it does not take for you to be in a certain function to do that. It doesn't even take you to have a leadership title, because leadership is an action, and all of us can have a seat at the table from that perspective. And so just engage. And be intentional. And the last thing I'll say is, if you can, take the time, take a mental day, right? Take a day and really spend time with who you want to be, what you desire for your life, and then connect that back to where am I, and really get intentional. I'll leave you with this memory that I have when I worked at Whirlpool. And I give all credit to Ingrid Jacobs. She is now a D&I consultant, but she's been a chief diversity officer. She's done all types of things. But I remember when we were at Whirlpool together, and we just became accountability partners to one another. And I remember we went in a conference room one day, and we just whiteboarded what we wanted for our life, personally, professionally, spiritually, what have you. We all put it all out. I wish I had a picture of that board still. We put it all out there. And we held each other accountable to making sure that we reach those goals. And so my point is, get intentional, find you an accountability partner, really map out your life and what you desire, and go after it relentlessly. You only have one life. Make it matter. I'll leave you with that.
Alecia, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for leaving your fingerprints with us and helping us get a little bit better today. And I'm so grateful. I'm honored to be friends and to be working with you and making a difference together. So thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you. What an honor. Thank you.
Alecia just left her mark with her fingerprints on many ideas for us to consider expanding the possibilities ahead for us from this episode. Something she would say is, just try it. She shared her passion for working on meaningful things. What comes to mind that you are passionate about? And what can you do to pursue this passion, even if it's a small step? Her superpower is connecting people and helping them see where to focus. It inspires people to believe and trust in themselves to live out their dreams and possibilities. Find someone who, with you, sees a particular skill or strength, and let them know what they can do with that skill, specifically with an opportunity or even something down the road. Help someone believe today, and they will. Inclusion is an action in Alecia's view, where innovation, discoveries, and creativity thrive. Redefine the words where you get stuck. Maybe it is inclusion, where we ask you to consider using open-minded curiosity to unlearn, relearn, or grow with a new perspective. What is the word or words for you? What's getting in the way? Allow your mind to open up with compassion to do better and the right thing for the world. Take small steps, unlearn, and grow. Alecia Smith says, we're all voices deserving to be heard and matter. Thank you again, Alecia, for making your impact felt in many parts of the world. She turned the light up in many of us today. In fact, I am still beaming from this chat, and you will too, as you live your possible.
That's all for today's episode. If you liked the show, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Live Your Possible dares to unlock your fullest potential and become an avenue for others to do the same. Join the community by visiting ignitehappy.com. It's time to discover endless possibilities with equal opportunity for all. See you again next week for more insights on how you can live your possible.